this Photoshop tutorial, we will make a Chicago montage with some famous landmarks, art, and architecture found around Chicagoland. We'll explore using the polygonal lasso tool, the quick selection tool, rectangular marquee, the magnetic lasso tool, and explore using layer style effects, opacities, and different blending styles. We will be using these 5 images to create the montage. All of these pictures were shot by me, with the exception of the Wrigley Field sign, which was shot by my brother, so photo creds to him. Download this folder from the Canvas lab. It will be a zipped file when you download it, so you can double click on that file to release the images inside. Let's start off our montage by opening up our main picture. Let's go to File, Open. Navigate into your Downloads folder, into the folder that you downloaded from Canvas, PS-Selections, and we'll open up the image that's named PS-Selections.jpg. Click Open, and now we can save our document. Let's go to File, Save As. Navigate into your Adobe Design Suite folder, and we'll make a new folder titled Lab 10-PS-Selections. And now you'll be able to see, since we've been naming our labs 1 through 9 with a 0 in front of the number, now that sequential order continues on when we get to lab 10 and above. Open up that new folder. We'll need to change this to a PSD, or a TIFF would work too. We need to preserve our layers. I'll put my cursor to the beginning of the file name. I'd like you to put in your last name, -10-PS-selections.psd. Click Save. This will be our main image that we'll start to layer different images into to make our montage. This is a small portion of the Chicago skyline. We see the bean sculpture in the foreground. It's actually called the Cloud Gate by Anish Kapoor in Millennium Park. If I look over at my layers panel, I can see that I have a single background layer and it's locked. We're going to cut apart this image a little bit so that we can tuck different images behind the objects in this photo. So the first thing I'll do is unlock the background layer, and I'll rename it Original Image. Our first step is going to be using the polygonal lasso tool to make a selection of the sky, to separate the sky from the buildings. L on your keyboard will take you to your lasso tools. You may need to click and hold down to reveal the hidden tools, and we'll use the polygonal lasso tool. I can pick a spot to start my selection, and I'll just go over to the left side where the sky meets the building. The polygonal lasso tool works with straight edge selections, and you'll see a straight line attached to your cursor after you place the initial click, and I'll just keep tracing around the edges of the building. Thankfully, most of this is fairly straight lines that shouldn't be too curvy. So use your space bar to navigate around your page. And now I'll just keep going along the outer edge of the document. So I'll just put one click up in the corner. And once you come back to the original starting point, look for the little circle to appear next to your cursor. And then when you click, you'll get a nice selection. It was a little weird when I was zoomed in there, but I can see I have my marching ants and I have that whole sky selected. I'm just going to clean up the edges of my selection a little bit by going to W on my keyboard and then selecting Quick Selection Tool. Just because I want to make sure I have all of the edges in here. So this will allow me to add to my selection. And I'll just kind of run it over the edge there. Now I can see it kind of snapped the selection in a much better boundary. So because this selection was time consuming to do, a smart action would be to save that selection, and then I could reload it later if I need to. Up in the Select menu, go down to Save Selection. It's telling me it's saving in this document, and we'll name it Sky. Click OK. And that way, if I deselected by going up to Select, Deselect, and I needed to bring that back, I could go up to the Select menu, Load Selection, go to Channel, and then you should be able to see Sky. Select that and click OK, and it brought the selection back. Go to your Move tool, V on your keyboard, and we are going to cut this selection. So go up to the Edit menu and select Cut. I see the transparency grid. And now we can paste the sky selection onto its own layer. But we want to paste it in exactly the same spot that it was cut from. So up in the Edit menu, go to Paste Special, Paste in Place. Otherwise, it tends to paste the object in the center of the document. Paste in Place puts it in the exact same spot. Now in my Layers panel, I can see I have an additional layer made now. It says Layer 1. If I double click on the word Layer 1, I can rename that layer Sky and save the document. File, save. For our next step, we'll open up another image that was downloaded. Go to File, Open, navigate into your Downloads folder, open up the PS-Selections folder, and choose the image named Chagall.jpg. Click Open. These are the famous blue stained glass windows at the Art Institute in Chicago, designed by Marc Chagall. And we will take a simple selection and copy it over into our montage file. M on your keyboard will take you to your marquee tools. We'll be able to use the rectangular marquee tool, and I'll just make a selection of the blue windows. I won't get the borders in there. Go to your Move tool, V on your keyboard, up to the Edit menu, and copy that selection. Click on the tab of the montage and paste the file in. We can go up to Edit, Paste. This is warning me that the color profiles of the two images are different. I'll click OK. And I can see that the stained glass windows are very large. It takes on the same resolution as the file that you're pasting it to. So I need to zoom way out. I'm clicking Control minus on a PC. It's Command minus on a Mac. And we'll transform and scale this image down. Using my Move tool, I'll go up to the Edit menu and choose Free Transform. And now I can see the full transform bounding box. I'll go to the lower right corner, hold my Shift key down so I don't distort it, and adjust the scale a bit. Click the check mark to apply the transformation. Looking at my layers panel, I can see my new layer, layer 1, that has the blue stained glass windows on it, is at the top of the layer stack. So that means it's in the foreground. First off, I'll rename that layer by double-clicking on the word layer 1. And you can name it something like blue windows. Now we need to change the stacking order of our layers. I can do that by clicking on the blue windows layer in the solid gray area and dragging it down to the bottom. And you'll see you get a line highlighted telling you where it's about to drop that layer. So now it's behind everything. I want to go up to the sky layer, and I'll drag sky down to the bottom. And now the stained glass windows should be behind the building and the sky is all the way in the background. Let's save the file. File, Save. And I'll select the blue windows layer. One thing that I can do is maybe bring the opacity of that layer down. And Photoshop allows you to do a scrubby zoom on certain settings. If I hover over the word opacity in the layers panel, you'll see two arrows show up next to the finger. I'll click and drag my mouse to the left to bring down the opacity, and it's making it more transparent that way. Click Save. Before we open our next image to use, I'd like to make some color blending contrasts to the original image. So I'll select the original image layer and we'll open up the layer styles. One way to do that is to locate the FX at the bottom of the layers panel, and you can click in to any specific style, or just blending options will bring you to the main menu. I'll go down to color overlay and check the box, and I'll also click on the word color overlay. I'll bring my opacity up, so 100% would be a lot more solid. My blending mode right now is set to color burn. If I have normal selected, you'll see more of just a solid color inside of that layer. And then you can also choose any one of the blend modes. So this will determine how that color is going to blend with the underlying layer. So you can choose any kind of blend mode that you'd like. And to change the color, you should see a rectangular solid colored shape. If you click inside of it, it opens up your color picker. So you can select any new color by using the rainbow spectrum slider to determine the range of colors that you want to choose, and then select the shade or the hue of that color in the larger thumbnail box. And once you pick your color, you can click OK. And now I'll bring down the opacity, so it's just a little bit of more of an overlay. I'll click OK, and now I can see on the original image layer I have an FX added. Underneath that I can see the effects that I applied. There's the color overlay. I can always take it off, modify it, double click to open up the layer styles dialog box again and make those changes. Let's save the document. Now we can open up the next image that we'll add to our design. Let's go up to File, Open, navigate back into your download folder, open up PS-Selections folder, and this time we'll select whitesox.jpg, click Open, and this is a picture of the Chicago White Sox Stadium. What we'll do to this image is use our quick selection tool to grab a selection of just the stadium. We'll leave out the sky, and we can get the field in there too. W on your keyboard will bring you to your quick selection tool. And the quick selection tool works with brush sizes. So right now I can see I have a 9-point brush size. I can click that arrow to the right of that and increase the size of my brush. One way of doing it. So you'll want to stay inside the stadium area, I'll click and hold my mouse key down and drag just inside, just kind of guiding it. I'm not going to grab the lights. If you want to, you can. And I'll just kind of make sure that it grabbed everything on the bottom there. Sometimes you need to zoom in and double check that it doesn't grab something that you didn't want it to, which I see that it did up here. And usually a combination of your selection tools will give you the best results. So something like this little area right here, I could, using my quick selection tool still, if I hold down the Alt key on a PC, Control key on a Mac, you'll see that inside of your cursor has a minus sign now. So that means I can subtract from my selections. So if I hold my minus sign down and click right there, okay, I subtracted from that selection, but it also kind of went a little too far. So I'll undo that, edit, undo, quick selection. And instead, this time I'll use my lasso tool. L on your keyboard will take you to your lasso tools. I have my polygonal lasso tool in the foreground, so I need to select just the regular lasso tool. And this is more of a free-form selection. And it works really well on little areas like this that you want to add or subtract from your selection. So holding down my Alt key on a PC, Control on a Mac, I have a minus sign now in front next to my cursor, and I'm basically going to draw around the area that I want to subtract from my selection. So I'll just click, hold my mouse key down and drag, and I'm just kind of going all the way around and then crisscrossing. Now it took away that area. So just double check that there's not any other areas. Here's one, so I can hold my Alt or Control key down, draw around that area to deselect. And let's check out this. Just a couple spots over here. And I think I'm about ready to copy this selection over into my montage. So first I'll switch back to my Move tool, V, go up to the Edit menu and select Copy. Click on the Montage Design tab, and I can paste that selection in now by going to Edit, Paste. I see it renamed the new layer, Layer 1. So I can double click on Layer 1 and rename it White Socks. And I'll drag that layer underneath the original layer, but on top of the blue windows. We'll transform this layer using the Move tool. Go up to Edit, Free Transform. You might need to zoom out a bit to see the full transform bounding box. I can hold my shift key down so that I'm not distorting. And you can kind of position that behind the buildings, and you can make it however large or small you want. I was kind of hoping to be able to show home of the Chicago White Sox sign there. And I want the field grass to come down at least to where these buildings meet over here. Apply that transformation. You should save the document, File, Save. And now we can add a layer style to the White Sox layer. Another way to open up your layer styles dialog box is by double-clicking in the solid gray area on the desired layer. And always make sure you have your preview box checked to be able to see the changes that you're making. And I can maybe just apply the same color overlay that I applied to the buildings. Maybe bring the opacity down a bit. You can change the color if you want to. And then we can click OK. So here I can see that now those layer style effects have been added. Save the document. Let's open up our next picture. Go to File, Open. Navigate into your download folder, into PS-selections, and select the file that says flamingo.jpg. This is a miniature representation of the flamingo sculpture by Alexander Calder that's located in the Federal Plaza in Chicago. And we'll use a magic wand tool to select this sculpture and place it in our document. W on your keyboard, and quick selection is probably in the foreground there, so hold that down and select the magic wand tool. The magic wand tool uses colors to determine its selection. So we have some additional options that we can use to help it along. First of all, there's a box up here that says contiguous, and that means adjacent or touching pixels. So if there was red all around this picture, it would grab the red from all over instead of just on the sculpture. So we'll keep the contiguous box checked, and tolerance is your range of colors. So the lower the tolerance number, the more specific it's going to be about that color range, and the greater the number, the broader the range of colors. So I'll start by just clicking once inside the red area. And I actually did a pretty good job of grabbing everything. But if I do zoom in, there might be a couple more areas that need helping along. So this lighter colored area here. If I hold my shift key down, I have a plus sign now next to my cursor, and I'll click in that lighter pink area, and it added that to my selection. If it starts to add the background, you can always undo it. I can also go over to my quick selection tool and just run it over those little areas that might not have gotten picked up in the selection. So it's always good to really zoom in and check your work out and see what's going on in there. Otherwise, you'll have holes where you didn't intend them to be. Okay. I'm ready to go back to my Move tool, V, and I'll copy, edit, copy, go back to my design and paste, edit, paste. It's warning me about the different color profiles. I'll click OK. And I can see it got put in between the White Sox and the building. I'll rename that layer. I see it's renamed as layer 1. So I'll type in flamingo and save the document. File save. If you'd like to scale down the sculpture, you can go up to the Edit menu, Free Transform. Might need to zoom out a bit, and you can position that wherever you would like. If you want to put it behind the stadium, that's fine. Apply the transformation. I'll double click on the flamingo layer to open up the layer styles box. And I could add a satin layer style. Maybe increase the opacity on it a little bit. Then click OK. And save the document. File save. Next, we'll open up our final image by going to File, Open, and select the Wrigley Field.jpg. Click Open. For this image, we'll use the magnetic lasso tool to make a selection of just the sign. L on your keyboard takes you to your lasso tools, and we will select the magnetic lasso tool. I can do one initial click and release, and then I'm going to slowly guide the magnetic lasso tool around the edge of the sign. I can always go back and fix areas if I need to. I don't have my mouse key held down. It's just kind of placing these anchor points as I go along. But you can always click and add an anchor point if you don't think that it's picking it up. If you need to restart, hit the escape key on your keyboard and you can try it again. I usually just try to take my time and then I want to locate the little circle next to my cursor to indicate I've gone all the way around. Now I need to zoom in just to make sure I've got everything. Maybe I could do my quick selection to add some of these areas that didn't get included. W to get to your quick selection. And I like to do smaller areas, then release my mouse so that if I do need to go back a step and undo, I don't have to redo everything. Use your space bar to temporarily get the hand tool to navigate around your screen. You can always hold the Alt key on a PC or Control on a Mac to subtract areas. So I need to subtract this area right here. Sometimes it can be a little bit difficult, but you can finesse it and usually get it to work. So it's usually a good idea to zoom in and just kind of do a quality check. Continue to work your way around the sign. And once you're okay with your selection, go back to your Move tool, V. Copy the selection, edit, copy. Go back to the lab and edit, paste. Click OK. Let's rename that new layer Cubs. And save the document. I think I want to bring the Cubs layer all the way to the foreground of the image, so I'll drag it up to the top of the layers panel. And using my Move tool, I can now transform and scale it by going to the Edit menu and choosing Free Transform. Hold my Shift key down so I don't distort the sign, and I can find a place to put it. If I want to rotate it a little bit, I can hover my mouse over the corner and drag it around a little bit. Click the check mark to apply. We can always add a layer style to the Cubs sign. So we can do either a color overlay, maybe satin. I think I like color overlay. And I might bring my opacity of it down just a touch. And click OK. So we used a lot of different selection tools to cut apart the original image and be able to layer different images together to create the design. We also applied opacities, effects, blending styles, layer style effects, and adjusted our layer stacking order. So we'll want to make sure that this PSD or TIFF file is saved. And we'll also export a copy as a JPEG. So up in File, Export, Export As. I'll save it as a JPEG, 100% quality. Hit the blue export. Navigate back into your Adobe Design Suite folder, into folder Lab 10, PS Selections. I'll keep the name the same and it changed the format to a JPEG. Click the Save button. So it kept my PSD tab open, but if I open up my JPEG file, I'll navigate back into Lab 10 Photoshop Selections folder, and I'll open up the JPEG version of this lab. You'll see that it's just one single layer, so I can no longer edit these layers separately. And that's what you will submit for this lab, is the PSD file and the JPEG. So you can close all of these tabs in Photoshop. If you open up your Finder window, navigate back to folder Lab 10-PS-Selections. You should have two files inside, a JPEG and a PSD. Select those two files and zip them together. I can tell it to send to compressed zipped folder. And that zipped file is what you'll submit to Canvas. Thank you for watching.